Thank you, Dr. Neha. Thank you, Hindi team. Thank you, Sahani sir. Now we are moving to the English session. Today is our 1841 the day. So welcome everyone. Let's start our meeting with a silent prayer. Good evening and welcome everyone once again. Today is our 1841st day of continuous webinar. Today is our guest is Dr. Deepthi. She's MD in Homeopathy and she's pursuing her PhD in Autism Spectrum Disorder. She worked as a research officer, scientist in Regional Institute of Homeopathy, Hyderabad. She's having more than 20 years of experience. I'll make you as a host, madam. Okay. And she's a experience of 7 years of experience in teaching, and she working as a associate professor in the Department of Psychiatry, 10 years of research experience. And today's our topic is metal group of remedies. And you are most welcome to the IFPH webinar, Dr. Deepthi. You're welcome. Now you can start.
Thank you so much, madam, for your warm welcome and a kind introduction. And I take this opportunity to thank Dr. Danesh sir, Ismail Seth sir, Shaji sir, and all the IFPH members for this wonderful opportunity. And I congratulate them for their unwavering efforts to promote homeopathy on an international platform like this. And 1800 is not a joke. It is a great thing that you have been consistently taking this forward. And I thank our DG CCRH, Dr. Subhash Kaushik sir, also for this opportunity. And before starting this session, I would like to ask each one of us, what is the proportion of cases that we prescribe metal remedies? Now, let me put this question in a different way. How many times do we really prescribe metal remedies as constitutional remedies? Yes, we all prescribe Cupromet for epilepsy, Oromet for depression with suicidal tendencies, Alumina for a bottle-fed baby. But then what about the constitution? How often are we prescribing metal remedies or constitutional remedies? So I would share my PPT and I would encourage each one of us to think about this. Is my PPT visible, madam?
Yes, yes, visible. Need for study, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. So we all know that metal group of remedies, they contribute to a major proportion of the elements, and they're often indicated but sometimes neglected or under prescribed. So today's presentation, I would emphasize on need for study, the general characteristics of metals, and the characteristic symptoms of metal remedies, the differences between hard metals and soft metals, the key characteristics of prominent metal remedies. Each remedy one by one we are going to see, and at the end I would summarize. So why we need to study about the metal group remedies? The answer is metals account for about 2/3 of all the elements and about 24% of the mass of planet. Not only that, human body is composed, make up of 2% to 2.5% of the mass is metals, and the iron being most abundant metal. But the trace elements like zinc and copper, although they are present in tiny quantities, they play a vital role in numerous bodily functions. And in a competitive world like ours, where it demands a person to be tough and strong and an achiever, metals are indicated many a times. But these are neglected or unprescribed or underprescribed remedies as constitutional remedies in a homeopathic practice. And owing to the growing prevalence of neuropsychiatric disorders in the new millennium, also because metals have a very good affinity towards the central nervous system as well as the peripheral nervous system, there is a need to study the metal group of remedies to enrich our knowledge, to refresh our knowledge, to just recollect and remember, try to remember and try to apply in our clinical practice so that we can see good results, and ultimately the patients would be the greatest beneficiaries. Coming to the general characteristics of metals. Metals, why we are seeing the general characteristics? Because there is a doctrine of signature. All these characteristics of metals will reflect in the mental and the physical constitution of the metal group remedies or metallic constitutions. So coming to the first characteristic symptom of metal is they are lustrous. They have a shiny surface that reflects light when polished or freshly cut. This represents they are people who shine in this world, who are go-getters, who are achievers, who are toppers, who are well refined and polished and very good people in the society. And metals are malleable and ductile, meaning that they can be hammered into thin sheets or drawn into thin wires. Although they are strong and tough, but still they take the other shapes without breaking. That capacity, the resilience and the strength of metals along with the flexible nature is indicated in this. And they're good conductors of electricity and also heat, allowing energy and charge to pass through them easily. That is why most metals are chilly. They can bear heat to any extent, but not the cold. So we can remember that all metal remedies are chilly and they are sonorous. What is sonorous? That is when we strike a metal, they produce a distinct ringing sound. That is known as sonority. This is reflected in the voice of a metals. The metals have the characteristic bass voice with a command in the voice. Even females, when they're metal remedies, they have a bass voice, like platina, the mannish remedy. The voice is like a bass voice. We see, right, in platina. So the sonority is represented or reflected in the form of bass voice and a strong commanding voice of a metallic constitution. They're hard, strong, tough, and they resist scratches and attempts to break them. That is why metallic constitution, they can endure lot of pressure, they can endure lot of trials, and they just go through it until finally there may be a decompensated state, but they have tough resistance and very good resilience and buoyancy. And they have high melting points and density, high density. That is, they are packed, many particles are packed into small place. This is reflected in the reserved, introverted nature of metals. All metals are reserved except platinum, except argentum metallicum. Now, when we are talking about metals, here we're not going to look into the alkaline earth metals, alkali metals, or the metalloids that are in the either side of this periodic table. But in the center, from group 3 to group 12, we see the true metals or the metals, so-called transition, like iron, cuprum, argentum, aurum, mercurius, so on and so forth. These are the remedies that we are going to look into today. Coming to the characteristic of metallic remedies, metals are highly ambitious. These are the people who have a high grade of ambition and they strive hard to reach that goal. They set high goals and they achieve that goal with their hard work. They are industrious, ambitious, industrious achievers, and they are reserved and introverted. They don't waste time like animal group remedies or other Solanaceae family. They are always reserved, introverted, talk to the point. When we talk to a patient in the clinic also, whatever you question, to that point they answer and then keep quiet. They are very dignified, and because they are achievers and they have good confidence, self-confidence, and they look to be haughty, dominating, dictatorial, contemptuous. All these mean same, but there's a difference in the intensity. Haughty means they feel they are great. Dominating is they feel great and they also dominate the people around them. Dictatorial is they want all the people to obey them and they're intolerant of any contradiction. Contemptuous is looking down others thinking themselves superior. So all these are find in different grades and levels in each metallic remedy. Most metals are responsible and duty oriented. They take the leadership roles in whatever activity they are doing in organizations, in school. Even children, they take the leadership roles, and they take the responsibility of entire team or the family or the society. They take the responsibility, and they are seen as pillars in the environment. They all have a performance pressure to achieve, to excel. They have this pressure to achieve, and they're driven to prove their worth to achievements. So they are go-getters. They want it, they go and get it. They are such kind of people. And at times, along with this, they have a fear of failure, criticism, loss of reputation. Even with all this, they strive hard to overcome that. They don't break under such fears or criticisms. And they have a desire for control over themselves and also control over others. They want to control their activities. They are disciplined. They have very strict schedules. They follow timetables. They have a lot of plannings, and they do everything in a systematic way. That is why they can achieve greater things. And they have mental rigidity and strict moral codes. They are conscientious. They have, like we study in psychology, human mind is made of three parts: ego and superego. The superego, which takes the function of morals and responsibilities, and so this is dominant in metals. So they are conscientious, bound to be led by the conscience, and sincere towards their work, that is diligence. That's why we also see many remedies under anxiety of conscience also. They always think, am I doing good, am I doing right, am I doing this correctly, am I playing my role, am I taking up my responsibility thoroughly? So they are conscientious people, and they tend to suppress emotions to maintain control or composure. They are very composed and balanced people, and to maintain that, usually emotions are suppressed. Intellect is more dominant, predominant over emotions. We know that intellect and emotions are inversely proportional. In metals, mostly the emotions are suppressed, and sometimes they suffer inner turmoil and depression, especially when they have failed. And they have also this desire to control others, and whenever they fail to do so, or they expect others also to have high morals, and when they can't see this in others, they develop anger, anger from indignation, anger from insubordination. These are the emotions are not so marked, but anger is the one emotion that is marked, but that also comes due to insubordination and from indignation. And metallic group of remedies are perfectionists. They have strong desire to meet high standards, to whether they are self-imposed standards or societal standards. They have the desire to meet those standards. And sometimes these high standards, the desire and the striving to meet those high standards can lead to burnout, anxiety, or breakdown if these standards are not met. And all metals are positive minded, right sided people who are confident and optimistic. They always see on the brighter side of things. They look into challenges or as opportunities rather than problems. They're courageous and confident. They do not suffer much fears except that fear of their image, losing their image, or fear of failure, such. But usually they don't have such fears that we see in plant group and animal group remedies, such kind of PSLS. These are courageous people, not cowards. Metal group of remedies are also associated with certain broad themes in the physical plane or in the mode of their action. They exhibit degeneration and destruction. We see it at multiple levels, like body, mind, and emotions. There may be degeneration, tissue degeneration, or severe depression, or some kind of profound imbalances can also be there. And they act on deeper planes. Always we must remember that metals are deep acting remedies. They are chronic constitutional remedies, and they address these constitutional deeper issues rather than just superficial symptoms. Don't we must not prescribe, or usually they are not indicated, like in acute coryza or allergic rhinitis or such kind of superficial planes, but usually they act on a very deep plain. And the action is slow and progressive. They are deep acting and also long term acting remedies. And as this is also seen in the case of metal poisoning, where symptoms develop very insidiously and long term exposure to this kind of metallic toxins. So these are some physical or characteristic symptoms that we see in metal remedies. Coming to the physical characteristics, metallic remedies have a very good affinity for nervous system, bones, and blood. So mostly many metals, they have their affinity towards nerves as well as bones, as in aurum and argentum, and in on blood like ferrumit. And they have periodic fluctuations. Symptoms may come and go in cycles, reflecting rise and fall dynamic like in their mental states. As we have seen, mental state, they are highly confident, highly ambitious achievers, and when something goes wrong, then there may be a fall also. In the same way, even physical symptoms also come in rise and fall or go in cycles. And tendency for degeneration and hardening conditions like arteriosclerosis, arthritis, sclerosis, tumors, heart swellings, and autoimmunities, such all kind of degenerative and hardening sclerosic conditions also we see in metals. And most metals are worse from exertion and better from rest or gentle motion. We see this symptom especially in ferrum and stannum. We'll go in depth when we go look into the remedies, each remedy one by one. So other physical or general characters of metal remedies include most metallic remedies are psychosyphilitic in miasm. The predominant miasm in metals is psychosyphilitic, except alumina and argentum met where it is so saurosyphilitic. But syphilis predominates, and they have high affinity, as I told earlier, towards nervous system, bones, glands, blood, and also lungs like sternum. And most metals or almost all the metals are right-sided except platina, which is a left-sided remedy owing to its historical sensitivity and all the other features. Platina is a left-sided remedy except platina. All the metals are right-sided, and as we have seen earlier, they are good conductors of heat, and so all metals are chilly except platina and palladium, which are hot. And all metals are thirstless, because we see metals, they are not hygroscopic, they don't take water. So we can remember this way, that metals, all metals except platina are thirstless. From this you can clearly demarcate or distinguish platina, which is a very uncommon metal, or it is not a typical but an atypical metal. We'll see in the Metromedica part. And most metals, they desire for meat, especially red meat or strong meat like beef, pork, and also some metals like argentum met, they have desire for sweets. But mostly metals have desire for meat. And coming to the physiognomy, the physical constitution is strong built, rigid musculature, and they have squarish faces. You can see in this picture the man with the squarish face where the mandibles are prominent and the bony prominences are marked, and they have a dignified, serious expression on their face. At sometimes, like argentum and aurum, they have a smiling face. Still, there is a seriousness over their face, and there is a strong rigid musculature with squarish faces with predominant bony markings. And some of the characteristic physiognomic features of metallic remedies are like aurum has a depressed and responsible expression and a robust build, and the key physiognomic sign like deep set eyes, and if there is sorrow also, that is dignified, that we can see on the aurum met constitution face. Ferrum is strong but flushed. There may be a pseudo plethora or there is paleness, and the build is muscular. That is why we say ferrum is a white elephant. Strong, muscular, but pale and white. And there may be flushed cheeks and upright posture. Sternum is a weak, tired expression, but the build is thin build, and there is a hollow voice with sunken cheeks. Sternum met, remember, there is sunken cheeks. And plumbum met, the expression is withdrawn and stiff. There is always a muscular or a paralytic weakness. stiffness in the expression, and body is wasted, and the typical lead line on the teeth may be present in plumbum. At argentum, there is anxious, sharp expression, a slender build, but there can be a pressured sweet speech as well as nervous twitching that we can see on the face of argentum patient. Mercurius, the expression is suspicious or it can be an unstable expression. Build can be variable, but there is an excessive salivation or an indented tongue, trembling, tongue also fetid odor from mouth. These are some of the physiognomical findings that we see in each remedy. If we can talk about an example of a metal constitution, we can talk about the Iron Man of India, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patelji. So a freedom fighter and first Deputy Prime Minister and Home Minister of India. His nickname stems from his leadership in freedom movement, unwavering commitment to national unity, and strong and firm diplomacy. He used to integrate the princely states into the Indian Union, and his overall strength of character. So character, strength, these represent metals. For the global participants, I would give an example of Arnold Schwarzenegger, who began his career as a champion bodybuilder. He was just a modest person in a village of Austria, but he became a bodybuilder, then an actor, then a governor of California. So he's well known for his discipline in fitness, in politics, and his business, and his high willpower and commitment and hardworking nature. So this is the characteristics of metal constitutions. So metals suffer from certain causations, or their symptoms are precipitated by things like suppressed emotion, from unusual responsibilities, from pressure, stress, from anxiety, and ailments from thinking about complaints, which usually aggravates, and ailments from fear of failure, ailments from criticism or humiliation, or from wounded honor, or ailments sometimes may also appear due to disappointed love, loss of vital fluids. These are some of the causative factors that we see in metallic remedies. And in the decompensated state, in a collapse state or breakdown phase, metals have lack of self-confidence and they have despair of recovery. Then there is a prolonged stress. They can go from high function to total collapse. That is why we say metals exhibit all or nothing behavior. There is a possibility of developing into delusional state of mind where they feel that people are attacking them. There is plans going behind them, sketches going to rob them, to murder them, to bring their reputation down or something. These all happen, or even suicidal thoughts, suicidal tendencies. All these happen in the collapse or breakdown state or the decompensated state in metallic constitutions. So coming to the differences between hard metals and soft metals. Hard metals, as we know, like aurum, mercury, and platina, palladium, argentum. The soft metals like alumina, plumbum, and stannum, these are all soft metals. What are the difference between them? All have the metal features that we discussed till now, but hard metals are strong-willed, but the soft metals are weak-willed. They are not so decisive, they are not so strong-willed. Hard metals are very confident, positive, and optimistic, whereas soft metals, they lack self-confidence. That is why, although they are also ambitious, they are also hardworking, but they do not have self-confidence. That is where they rely more on God. So we see increased religiosity in soft metals, whereas hard metals have an average religiosity. And hard metals are courageous. They are very good public speakers, orators, and they can perform without any inhibition or apprehension. But soft metals, they have timidity appearing in public. And hard metals, there are no much delusions or except in the stage of collapse. But soft metals, they inbuilt, they have a core feeling of being persecuted or being chased or being harmed by others. So therefore they have a lot of fears and they cling to God, and they also achieve, but then they have lack of self-confidence, and all this differentiates the hard and soft metals. Now we are going to the key characteristics of some of the prominent metal group remedies. So aurum met is a very good representative remedy of metal group of remedies, and although argentum comes in the alphabetical order that we are seeing today. But I would prefer to start with Aurum, because Aurum personality is like a pure gold. When we talk about character of an individual, we say this person has 24 carat character, personality or nature. So Aurum is a highly responsible person and a very industrious, hardworking person and strong-willed and ambitious person who is a good achiever, but he strictly adheres to morality, duty, and performance. He is conscientious. There is strong moral character in Aurum, and he also expects others around him, his family, his subordinates, them to be having such morals, but when they fail, he becomes disappointed. Therefore, interpersonal expectations lead to disappointment, and he is highly intolerant of contradiction. When he says he believes that he is right, and he always tells others, takes them in the right way, and whenever there is an contradiction, he cannot tolerate it. And all his self-worth is tied to achievement of difficult goals. He takes very high goals, high morals, everything high, and he desires to take up difficult goals and strive hard to possess them. And when he fails, if he fails, he develops intense guilt and despair. So when the goals are unmet, he may experience guilt, self-reproach, and despair. This is what differentiates metals from animals. When animals fail, they'll blame others, they blame parents, they blame teachers, they blame the society. But Aurum is a person who, if there is a failure, he will reproach himself, or he will blame himself and develop guilt and despair, and sometimes this could lead to suicidal thoughts, and there is anxiety of conscience as if guilty of crime. The Aurum personality, he is always, he will fulfill his responsibilities, duties to the perfection, but when he fails, he becomes anxious and as if he is guilty of crime. And this, as we have seen a list, a compensated stage. Always, let us not think that Aurum, it means there has to be a suicidal tendency. No. What are the other features of Aurum? They have a pattern of overwork and self-sacrifice. They push themselves to break down. They can stretch to any limit to overwork, and achieve their goals, and self-sacrifice, like carcinosinum. Even carcinosinum is also responsible. They have unusual responsibilities and very early responsibilities, but the difference is in Aurum they have unusual responsibilities at a later age. The typical situational mathematic of Aurum is like an elderly person of the family who develops himself, he achieves so much, and then he will give hand to his siblings, the younger ones, and their children, and he will bring them up with high sense of responsibility. And he's highly sensitive to betrayal. If somebody rebels or fails to meet his expectations, or betrays them, he feels heartbroken. And in such states, or usually Aurum seeks to find relief through structure and devotion. Structure meaning exactness, perfectionism, that relieves him, and sense of duty and devotion to God. So the symptom that we see in Aurum is amelioration from music, religious music. So Aurum is better by religious music, especially like bhajans and all kinds of religious songs and music ameliorates his complaints, and he has desire for order and structure, and he finds solace in keeping everything very structured and organized. And Aurum develops ailments from grief, ailments from loss, especially pecuniary loss, and ailments from anger with indignation. This is a very brief uh, picture of Aurum, because we have many remedies to go and we just have 1 hour. So I'll just uh, go through all the remedies in brief and point out the key characteristics, and let us all recollect and refresh our knowledge of mathematic of this metallic remedies. The next metal is Aurum argentum metallicum. So as we all say, speech is silver but silence is gold. Yes, Aurum patient is silent, reserved, introverted, always smiling. Aurum is smiling, never laughing. There is a decent, dignified smile on his face that we see in the picture also right now. And silver, speech is silver. The same thing we see in the argentum metallicum patients. They are people who are expected to perform, to talk, to speak out or express themselves intellectually through speech, through writing, to singing, like journalists, like anchors, like public orators, like preachers, all these kinds of people we can see an Argentum Metallicum constitution. They feel that their survival is linked to how well they perform intellectually, how well they speak, how well they write. They feel that their performance, and they also find a defense in such kind of activities, intellectual activities. And this is a situational metamedica of Argentum where from the childhood there has been a pressure to perform or show one's talents or their intellect. So this becomes a condition of acceptance. They feel that if I study well, or if I uh, perform well, if I sing well and get this prize, then only my mama and papa will accept me. Like this, they think that as a condition of acceptance. So this leads to high alternating states like high self-esteem, where patient thinks I'm a high performer, or sometimes they have deep self-doubt, like I can't perform, I'm useless, especially when their expectations are not met. If they fail to achieve their expectations, they may have the other side of this high performer becoming I'm a useless or a very poor performer. And there is a characteristic aggravation from intellectual exertion or overuse of voice or overuse of intellect in the form of speaking, singing, or all other. But these are forms of expression of the Argentum patient, but they aggravate. That is why we see in the keynotes like hoarseness of voice of public speakers. Yes, yeah, and overburden, when their overburden collapse happens and they lose their voice or develop mental confusion, forgetting, and loss of clarity. This is the decompensated state of Argentum. Usually they have anger, fright, and loss of control. When they are being forced to perform, they develop two emotions, anger along with fear, anger with fear. And they may become aggressive or explosive under provocation, because all that suppressed anger, suppressed fear sometimes make them explode under provocation. Children who are forced to perform in the form of singing, or here I have shown a picture of uh, uh, basketball, but usually it's not physical. Most of it is intellectual performance, singing, speaking, or kind of dance, all kinds of intellectual or even studies also. And children are forced to perform, sometimes they develop into Argentum metallic constitutions where there is alternation between high self-confidence and hopelessness, or alternating moods from clarity, brilliance, intellectual fluency to loss of mental power, or almost even being feeling insane. There is also a feeling of smallness or sense of weakness or vulnerability in an Argentum metallic constitution. That's where they have this desire for good opinion of others and showiness. They want to show off themselves. That's why you can see the pictures like the anchors, news readers, the other kinds of people who are on the media. And so showiness is also one important feature of Argentum metallicum. So they have longing for approval of others. For this approval, for gaining approval, they show off their talent or their intellect. So it remedy image includes individuals like public speakers, orators, preachers, writers who use logic and speech more than perhaps they feel deeply. Speech is silver. So when Argentum met remembers speech and expression of intellect in the form of, it can be speaking or writing, like journalists, like poets or writers also we can think of in Argentum metallicum. So the cadmium metallicum is another hard metal that we see where irritability is more prominent. Usually plant groups are more irritable, like Naxvomica camomilla we see, but this is a metal with irritability in mind and in body also. The person is easily upset, highly irritable, and small annoyances irritate deeply. For everything they get irritated very easily. And there is a fear of solitude, horror of solitude, and aversion to work that characterizes cadmium metallicum. And there is mental dullness and sluggishness with general exhaustion and prostration. Mental exhaustion, also physical exhaustion, and a feeling of being broken down is the key characteristic of cadmium met. And there is an apprehension or anxiety before or during stool. So there is a mental disturbance tied with the act of passing stool. This is one characteristic which we have to remember. Cadmium met anxiety before or during passing stool. The picture is indicative. And also they have this fear or apprehension if someone approaches them, a feeling of unease if someone comes near, possibly social anxiety or sensitive to proximity. We see in Arni kind of traumatic condition, they have fear of being approached by others. But this is a mental sensitivity to proximity. They have this fear of being approached by others, and they always desire to be quiet and at rest. And mental restlessness is present in the remedy, which is worse in sunlight. These are some characteristics of cadmium metallicum. So other metals features like positive, industrious, ambitious, go-getters, achievers, all things apply to all the remedies. So I'm just pointing out to the keynote or the characteristic or the specific symptoms of that each particular metal remedy. Coming to sleep disturbances related, cadmium met individual suffers a lot of uh, dreams and all kinds of nightmares in sleep, and they also have moaning and groaning during sleep, also smiling during sleep, if you can see that picture. So all kinds of suppressed emotions, or all through the day they are irritable like a popcorn machine, and but in sleep they show this kind of smiling or moaning or nightmares like calibro. Fear of being approached, one characteristic symptom of cadmium metal. We have seen that metals are courageous and they are very influential public speakers, but cadmium and very few remedies have the opposite. They have fear. Cadmium individuals, they have fear of being approached. Coming to the another hard metal, cuprum met. So the core feeling of a cuprum met constitution is feeling of being attacked, and this feeling of being attacked does not remain stable in their life, but it comes in paroxysms, intermittent paroxysms. They suddenly feel that somebody is under threat, or so they need they feel the need to defend themselves and to be ready always for a sudden attacks. The same thing, the fist, clenched fist of cuprometin epilepsy, same is the nature of that individuals ready to fight, like that. That is the mental state of cupromet constitution. They have violent anger, and usually metals have anger from insubordination, anger from indignation, and that is a balanced, controlled anger that they show in a right way. And but cuprum has a violent anger, and during the paroxysms, as we have discussed earlier, when these paroxysms of feeling attacked come, they show anger, violent anger, with shrieking, biting, spitting, rage, and kicking, and this kind of boxing kick like this. So that is the nature of cupromet. They have emotional outburst in reaction to a feeling of being threatened, and there is a desire to retaliate or strike back. Whenever they feel that they are under threat, they have desire to strike back. They want to retaliate, they want to take revenge on, just not to defend passively, not just defense, but to retaliate or strike back. And this also, like cadmium, cuprum also have fear of being approached or being fear of proximity, especially in children, when presence of others may trigger a defensive response. So this is also one characteristics of cuprum. And cuprum met constitutions have a delusion of grandeur or rank. This is the person feels that they are of a very important status or of big status, or they think themselves as a general, army general, or a colonel, or a high officer, or an officer holding some rank, or a great social status. So this kind of delusions are there in the Cupromet constitution. Therefore, their voice is also very dictatorial, dominating dictatorial. So you can see how army individual gives commands to the people, pray so that, like that. A Cupromet patient, he commands and dictates and dominates over the individual, thinking himself to be very big or of a very great status. And there is a theme of performance even in Cupromet, and they feel that this is a need to perform, not simply to survive, but need to be more. I have to be something more, something different, something big. So they try to perform. So in this way, there is a very characteristic symptom of cupromet constitution, which has even helped me treat a case of West syndrome, a child with autism with epilepsy, and some EEG changes were there. And this child has one savant skill called mimicry. He can imitate all the animals. The child has poor speech and poor academic performance, but the child was making all kinds of the voices of animals, everything like elephant, dog, cat, and all. They were mimicry. He was showing that imitation. So imitation, mimicry, or showmanship is also one of the keynote of cupromet. In that child who is to get convulsions every day 20 to 30 times after cupromet, child hardly got any convulsions, maybe 1 in 2 months or like that. So the keynote there was imitation. We can take this repertory rubric in mimicry. In synthesis, we get hyoscyamus and cuprum, and some other very few remedies are there. And sometimes they may imitate others. That is what we see in, this person, he is doing a ventriloquism here, but there are people who imitate publicly national leaders or movie actors, and even children who imitate and act theatrically, and they entertain people. So this kind also is there in cupromet. Coming to the next hard metal, which is ferrum metallicum, as I said earlier, also ferrumet is like a white elephant, physically very weak and many times anemic, or there may be pseudoplethora, or they may be physically well also, but there is a sense of weakness, but inside they are very strong-willed, and there is a resistance to outside control. So they fight against it. These are fighters. They feel like they're being compelled or forced to do things against their own will. So there is a disposition to contradict and being obstinate. They're very, very obstinate people, ferrumet, and there is a disposition to contradict. If you say one, they say two. If you say two, they say one again. This is the disposition to contradict. Also, the ferrumet individual have anger from contradiction and intolerant of contradiction. Yet they have a tendency to contradict others. This is one characteristic of ferrumet. They also suffer guilt and anxiety of conscience when their expectations are not met. They may develop but the core feeling is need to protect self and family, defending one's own territory emotionally and socially. That means they have this protect theme of defense or protection. How a white elephant or the father elephant, he protects his territory, the baby elephants and the female in that territory. The ferrumet individual have this tendency or this theme of protection and defense. That is where they become fighters. They fight for their organization. They fight for their family. They fight with their bread and butter also. Sense of being invaded or overridden by external expectations. They always feel that somebody is forcing me to do this, so I'll not do this. I will do the other thing. They have this contradictory behavior. And ferrumet is sensitive. So sensitivity is not so much seen in metal remedies. Like plant group remedies are very sensitive, emotional like that. But ferrum is very sensitive and easily irritated by noise, like Nux vomica, and also irritated by contradiction, ailments from contradiction or anger from contradiction. So they are very intolerant of contradiction, and it leads to anger outburst with tendency to fight, and all kinds of anger, scorn, vexation, they provoke symptoms. And they have very specific dreams. Ferrumet person dreams of battles, fights, wars, as if someone is forcing one into something. Sometimes patient says, I dream as if my parents are forcing me to get married to a person whom I don't like that, being compelled to marry someone against strong objects, lack of freedom. These are the core dreams of a ferrumet constitution, and dreams of fighting. Very characteristic of ferrumet. Fighters, they fight in the real world. Dreams also, because dreams are the representation or expressions of the unconscious mind. So dreams of ferrumet include dreams of fighting, like boxing or kung fu, karate, or just fighting or quarreling with others. These are the kind of dreams the Ferromete individual have. Coming to the next metal remedy, that is also a hard remedy, manganum metallicum, but we see here a kind of mineral, other mineral, natrum features, like the patient has strong hatred towards people who dominate because he feels that he is being dominated or suppressed by parental figures. That could be parents or in-laws, or it could be grandparents, or the feeling of being dominated or suppressed, and therefore they develop this theme of attack and defense. So they feel attacked and they feel that need to defend themselves, and with this they have also a kind of vulnerability and weakness, so they cannot express this anger and they feel powerless, uh, and suppress that anger. So all that pent up anger turns into bitterness, rancor, resentment, and hatred towards people. That is why we see hatred to people who dominate in manganamate, whereas Natramure also has hatred, but people who offend her because of that deeper sensitivity and so sensitive to hurt, all those people who hurt her, she will avoid, keep them away. But manganum is constitution where all the bitterness, everything is accumulated, and they have hatred towards people who dominate them, who command or control them. And so all the suppressed angers, everything will expressed in form of sadness, and such deep sadness finds relief only through deep melancholy and or sad music. So they find solace in hearing to sad music. This is a very characteristic symptom of manganamate. Whereas in aurum, if you recollect just what we have seen, religious music or devotional music ameliorates, whereas sad music ameliorates, like those of violin, or that gives relief to a manganum metallicum patient. So melancholy that is ameliorated by sad music is characteristic of manganum. Coming to the next metal remedy, before that, manganum also have this, as I have discussed earlier, feeling of hatred towards those who dominate them, hatred to parents or parental figures who dominate them. They feel like taking revenge or resentment, bitterness towards such people. They cannot express it. Also, the patient tends to be anxious, nervous, tense, jittery. Jittery means highly nervous and moving here and there like that. And especially when they're being observed or when some demands are made on them. So, because of all this, manganum metallicum patient, he developed discontentment, discontented with self, also with circumstances. There is a deep feeling of discontentment, dissatisfaction with life and with their own self. The next hard metal, the only liquid hard metal, liquid metal remedy, which has very, very characteristic symptoms which by which we can easily identify an Merksol pair person. The core feeling is being dominated, suppressed, or contradicted by an extremely dictatorial authority. So they find solution either to get away from or revolt against this domination. That is why we see Merksol in anarchist, revolutionary anarchist, revolting, defiant. They they defy the authorities. Even children, they have oppositional defiant disorders. They have this tendency to rebel stars. They are people who revolt against authority, who are resisting the authorities, and they revolt against them. People who create or lead these hartals and all kinds of antisocial activities come under Merksol. So other, sorry, I mean to say, not all hartals, but then when it is antisocial. So because Merksol constitution is highly syphilitic, they have this tendency to hurt and harm others without any feeling of, empathy towards others. There is callosity, and in the highly syphilitic stages, they don't even worry, or they don't even mind killing people. Also, there is a sudden impulsive anger and violence, extreme moods alternating from fears, rage and jovial mood also. Sometimes you see a very jovial person, and only after probing into their total history, after spending hours together, then you realize that person is a very cruel and a very hardcore personality, or a callous kind of mental personality who has impulses to kill and very strongly defiant towards authority. Then we realize it's a Merck-Saul constitution. They have impulses. The impulse is a syphilitic phenomenon. They have impulse to resist, impulse to kill, like Hepar-Sulf. Merck-Saul also have impulses to kill, to either homicidal or suicidal impulses and violence. So all kinds of revolutionary and anarchist, especially antisocial personalities, and those who have impulses to kill without any sympathy or empathy towards others under Merck's constitution. And Merck-Saul person or child is precocious is one important thing that we see in pediatric patients. Precocity. There is a dullness also, but they also have a bright and high ability in certain issues, certain factors, and there is precocity, meaning that milestones are before time, and this is seen in body as well as in mind. It's not necessarily precocious puberty, but it can be in the terms of behavior also. Small, even a 9-year child trying to shave, or or going into substance abuse, or such kind of behaviors can be there. And the child is impulsive and impatient, and Merck-Saul person is hasty, especially in speech. As itself is hurried, hasty in all activities, in work, in walk, in talk, everything. But Merck-Saul hasty, and it is represented more in the speech. There is hurried speech, and there is also fear of contradiction and being forced to behave against will, and so he becomes discontented. And there are also delusions like someone behind him, surrounded by enemies and persecuted. So one of the of the hard metal that is platinum metallic, and platina, as we all know, has a superiority complex. Thinks I am superior to others, they are beneath me. So it's not just only haughty, but contemptuous. Arrogance and haughtiness with an inflated sense of self-worth is seen in platina patient. And there is not only in the mental sphere, in the physical sphere also, there are abnormal perceptions, like she feels that body is larger or more imposing than that of others. There was one patient in my OPD who asked me to treat for her enlarged breast, but when seen, it was all proportional, but she kept on saying that it was very big breasts. And at last, in spite of telling many times, she underwent a plastic surgery also. So unusual or abnormal perceptions of their physical superiority is also seen in platinum. And there's intense sexual excitement, often accompanied by trembling and flushing. So this makes them avoid social situations. But platina, we always think very haughty, arrogant and all, but there is a sensitive part of platina also. Inside they have tearfulness and melancholy and tendency to weep without any relief from consolation. And they all these make them lead to withdraw from others. There is a delusion of delusion of being neglected. That is why patient shows that other extreme of being over important or over pompous. There are illusions and delusions in the physical sphere that we have seen. And oversensitivity, there are heightened emotional responses to perceive slight insults, especially they cannot bear insults. Some patients will say, if there is an insult, I cannot stay there, doctor. I will definitely get out of there, or I will avoid such situations. Very sensitive. Sensitivity makes platina a left-sided constitution. And thermally also, remember, platina is hot and the alternating states of arrogance and deep melancholy. And all the complaints are left-sided. The very characteristics that we see in platina are also seen in our next remedy, palladium, but it's a right-sided remedy, showing that it is positive. The person is has also pride and superiority, but they feel more refined and above others. Refined.
Doctor, we have only 4 minutes more.
Okay, ma'am, I'll try to complete. Okay, so the difference here between palladium and platina is desire for flattery is more prominent in palladium, strong longing for good opinion of others. So next metal, plumbum met. We are coming to soft metals in this. Timidity appearing in the public and fear of losing control or mind is the characteristic of plumbum met. And there's mental paralysis, feeling mentally slow or dull, and there are apathy and deep depression, hopelessness in the individual. So plumber met means not just the physical paralysis, but mind also. There is paralytic and stiffness of mind and rigidity in the mind, and there is fear of losing self-control and very sensitive to stress. All kinds of stress was in their environment. The core theme is feeling trapped or restrained or held captive by circumstances. Stanum met, the core feeling is feeling weak, powerless, and overwhelmed, unable to cope with demands. That is why the mental state is marked by helplessness, exhaustion, and lack of willpower, the weakness that we say in the chest, the weakness to speak, and all that. Even in the mental sphere, there is weakness, exhaustion, helplessness, and inner tension and restlessness. Despite all weakness, again, there is restlessness and tension also, and desire for support, comfort, and reassurance from others. The palladium needs appreciation, but sternum needs reassurance from others. We all want appreciation, reassurance, but when it is marked and it is the core need of the constitution, we can think of these remedies. Zincum, the core theme is restlessness and anxiety with desire to escape inattention. This is manifested in the form of restless movements, especially of the lower limbs, urge to move limbs and fidget constantly, and there's oversensitivity with a startling tendency like calicarb and natremure. Zincum also has oversensitive tendencies to mental exhaustion despite agitation. So restless leg syndrome with a metallic constitution, we can think of zincumet. In this way, I had a very good result in Parkinsonism disorder, Parkinson's disease. A case responded very well with zincumet that has been published. We can go to. And another soft metal, class A, we have come here. So almost the last remedy under the metal constitution. Why A has come back is because we went all in the alphabetical order, but this is the only soft metal, so I put it at the last. So feeling slow, weak, and disconnected is the key characteristic of alumina. Mental slowness, confusion of their own identity, confusion of and being disoriented or derealization or disconnected from self and others is the characteristic of alumina. And forgetfulness and absent-mindedness is characteristic. And these are the people who are forced to write on the right hand as, but they were a left dominant person. So the other remedies like Staphysagra and Merxol are also indicated. There is tendency to withdraw from situations, and there is confusion of identity, alumina and confusion. That's where delusion head belongs to other is a characteristic rubric of alumina. There is also a specific fear of sharp pointed things like knives and all. Ichmophobia, like silesia, alumina also has this kind of fears. So metal remedies are very useful for us, not just in the clinical practice and research side also. They were useful for demonstration of the hormetic activation. For the first time was demonstrated in the metal group remedy. So beyond 30 and 200 C, nanoparticles are shown, but how they will produce biological effects were not shown. But there was a study where they show that hormetic activation was shown in metal remedies also. These are the books that I have referred. Thank you so much for your
Thank you so much, doctor.
Thank you. Thank you, madam.
Actually,
Thank you so much.
With this 1 year, 1 hour, you have done a good job. Really wonderful class, but I think
last remedies.
Have to take this the entire class in 2 sessions, means that will be more beneficial for us, because we can absorb more. Now you are rushing now to finish within 1 hour.
Yes, ma'am.
Anyway, now it is the time for the Malayalam session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
There is an announcement for tomorrow. Tomorrow we will have a session from Dr. Devangit Pandya, and the doctor will be talking about batch flower remedies. And as you all know, the International Forum for Promoting Homeopathy is celebrating its 5th anniversary on 28th September at Taj Vivenda, Cochin. Hope all of you will register for the same, and those rupees 3,000 per person. And if you are not able to come over here, you can contribute a some for this success of this session, for our celebration. Thank you all. Over to Dr. Rajini.
Thank you so much. Thank you all the English participants. And now we are moving to the Malayalam session. I'm inviting Dr. Shaila for moderating Malayalam session. You're welcome, Doctor.